I have to face a tough choice, follow in my sister's footsteps and give up the person I love, or hold on to my love even if it means going against my family's responsibilities. 21, all for her. Sometimes our minds weave intricate tapestries of illusion, a necessary deception crafted by our psyche to propel us forward when emotions and hormones threaten to overwhelm us. We perceive what we desire, hear what we need, and mold our feelings to fit our current circumstances. My phone continued to buzz with messages from Jackson, his pleas for forgiveness relentless. In an attempt to end his torment, I sent a brief reply, "I forgive you. Move on with my blessings." His response was immediate and resolute, "Never." I believed him. Try as I might to banish thoughts of Nolan, they would intrude at random moments, gnawing at my conscience. Nyla, my sister, was his mother, and like her, I had left him behind. When the realization finally struck, I understood that my concern for his well-being was natural. However, it wasn't my responsibility, but that of my sister and his father. I willed myself to believe they would never allow harm to befall him. My own welfare took precedence, which might have seemed callous, but I reminded myself that Nolan had an entire family capable of loving him, just as they did his mother. That family had bent rules for Nia, and undoubtedly, they would do the same for her child. Before I blocked and deleted her number, Nia sent one final message, imploring me to reconsider giving Jackson another chance. She claimed she couldn't trust anyone but me with her son, begging me not to abandon him. I laughed maniacally that day, the irony not lost on me. She had conveniently forgotten that she was the one abandoning him, not I. She could have visited him or arranged shared custody, anything but attempt to foist her responsibilities onto me. On the last day at Blayze's house, I found myself leafing through Agnes's recipe book, searching for the perfect dish to conclude our mini-holiday. The leather-bound tome felt heavy in my hands, its pages rustling softly as I turned them. "Can I borrow Agnes's book? Please. I want to sift through it for a recipe." I called out to Blayze, who was working in the study. Despite taking a week off to spend with us, he still carved out time each day to check in with the pack virtually. His beta, Evans, ensured everything ran smoothly and updated him daily on every detail. Blayze's commitment never faltered, even when I attempted to distract him with my feminine wiles. "Do you mind taking it with you? I need to conference a client. And you know how attorney-client privileges go," he replied, his voice muffled through the closed door. "Yeah, babe. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." I acquiesced, retreating to our bedroom. As I settled onto the plush comforter, I began skimming the pages in earnest. During my last visit, I had barely made it past the first quarter before skipping to the end. This time, I was determined to read the entire book. The scent of vellum and leather filled my nostrils, heightening my excitement. This custom-made tome, with its pages rather than traditional parchment, was a treasure trove of culinary history. Each page seemed to hold the essence of its author, and as I ran my fingers along the text, I felt a connection to the generations of cooks who had contributed their knowledge. My love for reading and culinary exploration fit perfectly with this family, a realization that brought a smile to my face as I delved deeper into Agnes's culinary world. "I swear, you have no sense of time or reality when you read." The bed dipped next to me. Raising my head, I looked out the window to see the golden evening glow of the sunset was fading from the sky. The dark twinkling canvas of the night sky was ready to unfold above us. An entry made by Meredith, Agnes' third daughter, had sucked me into another dimension. She was to be married off to a man 13 years her senior, who was indeed her mate, but he lived in across the seas. She rejected him, not wanting to leave her home. Her poems lasted almost a year, before she began hating her home. The news of him becoming engaged to a Norwegian commoner devastated her. I kept reading, having invested so deeply into her tragic tale. I lost sight of the time. Did you at least find a good recipe? He asked, touching the top of the page where a small broken heart was doodled on. I lost myself in the pages. It's fine, my love. I made dinner reservations already. I hope you have an appetite for Indian food. Brendan liked the intricate designs and colors of the food flyer, which, as you know, meant he insisted that was the best of them all. He laughed a bit at the end. Not at all. Do you think it's possible for me to borrow this book? I really would like to read all of it before our wedding. I pouted my lips. I don't think that's a problem, as long as we return it. Is it very interesting? Please don't tell me you've never read it. I refuse to believe that. I've sat on my mother's lap while she read some of it to my sister and I. But off my own, no. Would I brow you here the first night? It had been years since I touched this book, he said, still touching the pages. I find that hard to believe. Well, in my defense, it's written for the ladies of the family. Reading of its pages would be like eavesdropping on a conversation meant for your ears only. He touched the outer shell of my ears, making me shiver. Get ready. I'm taking the family out to dinner then, we're going home. Let me pack up first. I need to secure this book for traveling. I insisted. Okay, my love. I'm going to see to it Brand and Osint run off into the pond again. Heidi threatened to tie him to the bedpost if he ties his trousers in the mud again. The child loved the outdoors a little too much. I wouldn't prized if he shifted soon because of his love to always be outdoors. Neatly I packed the book. Then all the books Blayze had gifted me in the past week. He often joked that I would never have enough time to catch up on them. A challenge I gladly accepted. At the top of the shelf was the envelope Jackson gave me last day I went back there. I walked away from him and my dad with this in my hand but never looked in it. I could have thrown it away then and there, or even looked into it. The dice of fate rolled that I didn't give the envelope or its contents a second look. It went into my luggage. Unknown to me, a Chekhov-esque gone in real life. The restaurant was uneventful. Brendan was too upset about leaving the garden house to enjoy the food. He didn't tantrum, but he did have a long face. For this reason, the rest of my night was spent cajoling him into playing with his father and I. To make the universe right again, I promised the child we'd set up our own garden at home with a pond. Let me say, easier said than done. It took days, but we had a small functioning pond with tadpoles and turtles. I was so tired, I asked Charlotte to take him for a few days, that I may relax. I'll be in my office if you need me. Blayze shouted from across the hall. He had a lot of work to catch up on and get ahead of if we wanted a long honeymoon. The Agnes book was still locked in my luggage after all these days. I didn't intend to read from it, only to find it a better place while in this house. I had to sniff it. It was just a habit with books. This time, I flipped the pages and my nose found a smell that was supposed to be here. Jade. My hands shook as I flipped the large Encyclopedia's Eyes book to the back pages, trying to find the source. An envelope made from plain parchment paper, housed a note that had been hidden for years. No smell but Jade. This Trojan horse was never discovered until now. When was she at that house? Did he take her there too? My special place felt dirty, used. I opened a page and wished I didn't. A priestess once told me there are many sides to a story. The truth, and everybody else's version. She went on to warn me. The truth is surrounded by a sponge, absorbing whatever lies are stacked on it. Wise people are good at finding truth. Wiser people are better at hiding it. Fools go on unsuspecting. I read the letter, word by word, then over and over. The last thing I wanted were facts to validate his past. I could have lived in doubt, even confront Blayze and fall for his version of the truth. I was sinking in the butchering depths of betrayal. Once again, the envelope given to me by Jackson. His warning. He brushed aside. My hands trembled as I read the pages. All notarized by the commission. The facts were here. Signatures and sworn statements. Blayze quintal verses Dahlia bridges the top of the page. He took her before the commission, not for custody of their child, but for her. I never questioned him about why he was so versed in dealing with them. He had prior experience. The first page, a detailed account of Dahlia's promise to marry Blayze. After the birth of their son, a wedding invitation sample was submitted as evidence. The gold-colored card had a signature from Dahlia. After an amendment was made, the second page, Dahlia agrees to step aside. She returned the ring, an antique piece that was once worn by Miss Edith Quintal, an ancestor of his. Engagement is off. Upon meeting Jade. On page 3, Blayze claims Jade feels nothing for him. The bond is broken. Jade agrees the bond is broken, but she still wants to try. Page 4. Request to have Jade removed from his territory. Request denied. Page 4b. Blayze refuses to have Jade around him. He wants to be married to the mother of his child. Dahlia and Blayze have met an agreement. Their engagement proceeds. A copy of the marriage banns was submitted. Page 4c. Jade objects. She is willing to look past Blayze's past and has agreed to accept her mate's son, on the condition the child is not named his heir. Page 5. Blayze warns the commission. His son will be his only heir. He wishes to refuse Jade. For Dahlia. He loves only Dahlia, and cannot tolerate Jade. I got lightheaded reading this. Déjà vu. My mate refusing me for another. Page 6. Dahlia Bridges has met her mate. For his safety, the name was omitted. She has moved to his house. In another territory, her 2-day-old son was left behind. Page 6b. Jade is willing to try, as long as Brendan is not given the title of Alpha Son. Blayze warns, he will fight for Dahlia. A numbered page. Blayze Quintal has formally submitted to the commission a petition to hold Miss Dahlia Bridges to her agreement to marry Mr. Blayze Quintal. An offer was sent to Miss D. Bridges. Blayze will appoint her as the pack's alpha female and name their son the next alpha if she accepts his proposal. Dahlia refuses. Blayze declares his son to be the next alpha, all to prove to Dahlia he will do anything for her. Jade rejects her mate formally. Will not have her lineage forgotten in time. Commission agrees. Dahlia still chooses her mate. They marked each other. Commission releases Dahlia from her engagement. Blayze Quintal versus Jade Singh. Petition to have his mate returned to him. I couldn't read another page. Blayze was honest with me. He'd chosen a man no better than my mate. Droplets of my tears fell on the scattered pages. Jackson and Blayze committed the exact same crime, loving a female who was their mate, fathering a child with a female who was his. Then they both tried to force their real mates to take them back. Blayze, however, was a scumbag who tried to force Dahlia to take him back. Poor Jade had to watch this happen. How do you choose one demon over the other? How do I try to make this work with Blayze when I couldn't be with my given mate for the same crimes he committed? Everything was now dirty. The house, the air here, even the sound of Blayze's heart beating downstairs in his office. My vision clouded as I ducked through all the documents, reading and rereading. The prenuptial agreement. He signed it offering me the same luxuries as Dahlia. As I suspected, Dad was deceitful and deigned to cut Brendan out. I was rushing through the Whitehall searching for him. My sense of navigation was gone and the house was a maze. I held the truth in my hands. Truth that could have reached my ears on countless occasions had he trusted me enough. Perhaps it was respect he lacked, because who would mislead a person they loved? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I threw the note in his face but kept the dossier provided by Jackson in my hand. What's this? He questioned before he started to absorb the context. To the future Quintal woman. My entry has no place in this journal. Being the mate of a Quintal man was enough for me to earn a place here. But still, Agnes created this link for all the females of this family to speak. As the righteous mate of Blayze Quintal, I deserve this chance. Out of respect for the real women who were given the tile Mrs. Quintal, I resort to adding my piece in a separated parchment, unattached to this book, the truths of my life. I met Blayze, Alpha Quintal, on a wet July morning. I was doing some volunteering work at the hospital to make my application into med school look better. Little did I know, it'd be meeting my mate with his pregnant girlfriend this day. My world fell apart in an instant. He looked at me, but didn't react. I accused him of being scum, for that I'm not proud. The pull left me before I could feel the sparks on his skin. I never felt the magic in my mate's touch. All I felt was an emptiness. It was such a pain. I fell to his feet within days begging him to please try to make it work with me. Women should never beg for what is theirs. Remember this, for it is my advice to you all. He claimed he still felt the magic in my skin. Sadly, it gave me hope that I could still have a chance with my mate. He didn't feel this though. All he wanted was his Dahlia. In his eyes, they did nothing wrong. He already had a female who loved him, therefore didn't need me. He refused to spend any time with me. That is, until Dahlia met her mate. She was understanding, willing to part ways amicably with Blayze. My mate was not having that. He refused to let her go, and before my face, he reminded her of promises she made, promises he demanded she keep. Even after knowing she met her mate, I wanted to die. She left him, and their son in the darkness of the night, leaving only a letter that Blayze never let anyone read. He burnt it in the fireplace, ensuring he alone would ever read it. I regret not knowing what she wrote. Seeing the child, he would name Brendan, was painful as getting every bone in my body broken, then having salt rubbed on my wounds. I was willing to accept him. He was the son of my mate, and I would love every part of my mate. He was a blessing. I believed in the words of my goddess. The good book speaks of the burdens of a Luna. I read that chapter many times. If only pride didn't exist. My mate chose his Dahlia over me. He named Brendan his heir in a final attempt to win back the heart of Dahlia. He was willing to make her the Pax Alpha female. He chose to embrace his lies, which is why I chose to walk away the day he made it official. Drive Jade sing, The Burdens of a Luna, the chapters of our holy book that explains a Luna can be born from the womb of any female, including that of a human. But an Alpha is only born from the womb of a Luna. It's the burden all Lunas must face. The responsibility of birthing real leaders. The law of our goddess, a law Blayze was breaking when he named Brendan his heir. Pride was his greatest weakness, as he refused to be wrong in this matter. He lied to me again. The truth about Dahlia now. Lys, he eyed my naked finger. Where is your ring? To fuck with my ring. Tell me why you neglected to be honest about Dahlia. I loved her. Jade didn't care for me the way Dahlia did. That's because you made her suffer. She felt the bond become corrupted. I slammed my hand against the desk. I know that now. But at the time, she was being a verbally aggressive bitch. Why would I want to make it work with someone who couldn't stop gagging in my company? You still fucked Dahlia even after meeting Jade. I felt the blood in me turn to slime. I knew too well the vomit is heaving. I felt many times around Neela. I was feeling it now. Blayze, who was supposed to be my knight, in shining armor, was no better than Jackson. I should have trusted that gut feeling. I wanted nothing to do with Jade. I told you this already. You couldn't face me, but you didn't tell me the truth. Did you? Now I couldn't face him, no. Go on then. I spit the bile on the carpet floor, souring the air in the room. It wasn't possible for me to keep it down. I didn't care for Jade because I had Dahlia. I wanted to make her my chosen, my Luna, but my father and his team of elders forbade it, unless my mate rejected me. So, I made my mate reject me. I didn't allow myself to be alone in her company. I felt the bond, but no matter how appealing it was, I chose my son over her. I would choose my son over any female. Even the laws of the goddess. Outdated words. We all know an alpha today isn't the same as an alpha from when that law was written. An alpha can be elected today. He raised his voice as if he were yelling at a delinquent child. Not without the blessing of the goddess. I wanted to pull the hair out of my skull you tossed your mate aside for a woman who didn't think twice about leaving you. Jade tried. You lied about her. Told me she couldn't accept what is, when it's you who refuse to own your mistakes. She never left you because of your son. She left you because you showed her. She would always be second. Her children would always be second. Dear God, will my children be second? I was sure I held a horror in my eyes. I won't take his birthright away. Was his birth right? Goddess, forgive me for asking this. I emptied the commission dossier on his desk next. If you had been honest, I know I would have tried to understand. But you chose to lie. To keep me in the dark the same way Jackson did. You're just like him. I was walking out the door. Almost at the garage. Where are you going? He moved to block me. I warned you. The lies were one thing, but bending wrongs to be right. You knew that is where I drew the line. From all the drama I faced with Jackson, all the challenges pushed in my face because he had a crowd of supporters legitimizing his sins, the one thing I held on to was my refusal to accept bullshit and claim it was ambrosia. Luna, please. He stood in front of my car. Don't leave me. I'll make this right. Make this right. How the truth is already out there. Are there any more lies or hidden bodies? You know everything now. Then there's no way to make it right, is there? The time to come clean was gone. Why though? Why was this a lie to begin with? I would have understood. He couldn't love someone who didn't reciprocate. The circumstances were fathomable. I drove to the malls, then took a taxi to my parents' house, not having anywhere else to go. I needed the distance while wanting my location to be unknown. I threw my phone into the river when the car drove past it. Let him think I drowned. When I walked into the yard, my eyes puffy and voice gone, no one questioned me, nor did they approach me. I was left alone, just like when I were a teen. Dad paid the taxi. I didn't have to ask. He was in the yard with Nolan, raking leaf. Aunt Luna. The child shouted and I ignored him. He didn't know the difference between his mother and I, but knew because Dad said my name. The L-shaped diamond pendant around my neck must have clued him in. Blayze gave it to last Valentine's Day, claiming the L represented love. It now felt like a collar around my neck, the kind a dog would wear when being trained. Once again, I was an empty shell on autopilot. This experience hurt more than when Jackson refused me. There was no invisible tie linking me to Blayze. I loved him for real. I guess that made me more like Jackson in a way. I curled up in my bed, crying silent tears. Are you okay? Of all the people living here, why him? Go away, Jackson. I can't do that. Talk to me. You can. Just move your legs in any direction away from me. I said, but he did the opposite. He invaded my space, entering my bed to just lay next to me, just like he did when we were teens. Only this time, he wasn't here because I didn't run with him. He was here because it's easy to kick someone when they were down. I was born to always hurt. You don't have to talk, but him here if you want to. His hands hovered close to me, as if he wasn't sure if to hug me or keep it to himself. Don't. The last thing I needed was his disgusting touch on my skin. What happened? There was a concern in his voice so new to me. In all the years I knew him, this was the first time his mind was solely on me. I guess with Nilly out of the way, he could give me his full attention. H.S. know better than you. I noticed the sounds of my heart was gone. My mind was in control, blocking out the raging sound of blood rushing past my ears. The rest of me felt completely desensitized. What happened? Mr. Perfect showed his true colors. I could feel a bit of excitement within him as he spoke. Does that make you happy, Jackson? To learn the mate I chose was no better than you. I turned to face him. Do you need a win so bad that you didn't hear I say HES just as bad as you? I shouted the last part. I was always honest with you, Luna. I never claimed to be someone I wasn't. Not like him. That makes me better. There was no deceit in his words, but a satisfaction of winning. The venomous delivery of the truth made it hard to breathe with the pain searing through me. He was right. How do I look past this? Was it really a big deal? Blayze's life before me was in part not my business. However, when he asked me to marry him, It became my business. He should have told me the truth. People change after they learnt from their mistakes. He was young when Dahlia happened. Perhaps he changed. Maybe because I was young too. Younger than he was when Brendan was born. I too was being led by emotions. Dare I say, I had overreacted. I contemplated going back for 3 days. On the 4th, I picked up the landline and dialed his number. I was convincing myself I had overreacted. A large part of me wanted to believe that past wasn't my business. It is future I wanted. The hell are you doing? Jackson yanked the phone from me, then slammed it so hard it dislodged from the wall. I'll fix it later, he said when Kailan came into the room to investigate the noise. Kailan had turned into the most overprotective brother in the world in the last 3 days. He took every opportunity to remind me I didn't have to settle. How do you settle when the one you settled on was good enough? That only made me more desperate and lonelier. Not more than an hour later, Blayze was at the house. Leave. Jackson was sizing himself up. Step aside, he demanded. Both of you should leave. I didn't wait for them to escalate. There was no point. My world was full of lies. Get off my land. Dad came out with a shotgun. The bullets were silver-coated. He got this gun specifically to keep Nilla safe. What a hero of a father. Too bad he was playing both sides. He was vested in both men. One for his status and the other who could bring his daughter home. What do you want? I asked over my dad's shoulders. You. I want you to come home. He took a step forward and Dad chucked the gun. Was my exit not subtle enough? That was me breaking up. From my peripheral. I cowed at this when Jackson smiled like he won something. Didn't he know he shared the title of worst mate ever? Category of common wolf while Blayze held the title among the alpha competitors. We can work this out. Don't do anything irrational. His eyes floated to Jackson. You mean like let him mark me? A crazed laugh mingled with my words. Tell me, how does the thought of me being with someone else make you feel? I'm going to eventually find someone you know. The thought of you being with someone else makes this situation worse. I hate myself, but you being with someone else makes me homicidal. I'm a sick, fucked up addict, and you are the only drug that makes me go insane while at the same time restore my senses. It almost sounded romantic. I think the dominance in him made me weak. But what one thinks isn't the same as what one feels. I should have told you. I was afraid you'd leave. Then, why are you here? If you know the truth would make her leave, then you should have known she'd leave eventually. Jackson spoke. Stay out of this. Blayze warned. Arrogance penetrated into his perfection. Thank the goddess this happened now. And not 10 years into the future. Or worse, after I allowed him to mark me. Unlike Nilla, I wouldn't be able to walk away from a male that marked me. I'd be stuck loving him. Please leave. I'll leave if you agree to speak to me when you have settled yourself. I don't owe you anything. Just leave. You heard her. Jackson was in his face now. With Kyle and Ed flanking him. With the loaded gun. Luna, I'll stay here and get shot if I have to. What do you want? I screamed when I saw his red fur rising. My dad and brother, even with Silver, stood no chance against this alpha male. To work this out. I know your head only contains the worst now. But in a week, I want you to agree to meet with me. She doesn't have to agree to anything. Jackson remarked. She's free to move on if she wants to. He said it like I had a line of suitors waiting for me. I was probably going to be alone. Tu m'as agent extraordinaire, Madeline Milgan. Heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. I'd mark some random male in the center that I was inevitably heading back to. 22 real help if I told you I was a strong person. It'd be lying. It'd also be lying if I said I were a smart person. I was very observant. I think my mind was one-dimensional. I didn't see the bigger picture because I was one of those people who accepted the first explanation without question. I followed the rules. Because I was told it's the right thing. I didn't take the shortcut because I was taught. They hid consequences. Only the strong can weather the long journey, and the wise can tell where the trail begins. If I had a broken antique watch, it'd look for a person who was specialist in the watch repair field. If the transmission in my car needed repairing, it'd take the car into the shop for repairs. The right people often solved problems while the wrong one could make it worse. You wouldn't call a mechanic to fix a broken toilet, would you? I crossed the state line to find her at the sea park she and her husband owned. How did you do it? Get over him. I waited for her all day until she showed up. She still worked her day job at the hospital, which I didn't know, or I would have gone there instead. You don't look so good, Luna. What happened? She didn't answer my question. I left him. I found your note in Agnes' book. You left him over a note. That doesn't sound smart. The keys in her head rattled as she opened the door, then gestured for me to follow. Why are you here? She asked in the polite street manner. I imagined this was weird for her, having her ex visiting her. How did you move on? I thought I was moving on with Blayze, but he did the same thing my mate did to me. But to you? I know I sounded like a mad person at this point. Your original mate rejected you. I think my circumstances was different, she tried to say. My mate, the original one, chose my human sister over me. She had his child after marrying her. Then my sister left and my mate wanted me back. He took me to the commission. The circumstances weren't that far off. You poor thing. How did you stop the empty feeling from transforming you into a lunatic? If I going down on my knees for help, I'd beg her for answers. You need real help, not wolves who want to pair off the leftovers. I can take you to a real doctor of psychiatry, but only if you commit to actually working with them. Real help. The journey began. In Dr. Huggins. Please come in. I was ready to run already. Jade prevented me, of course. This facility doesn't have any unmated employees. You won't be tempted to mark anyone here, Jade said as we entered the large office. She was here for moral support. Not as a friend, but as a fellow female who lived this process once before. Now, once you sign this document, you won't be able to leave for the next 3 months. In the event of a medical emergency, you will be transported to a facility not far from here. If you think you can't complete the stay, we will call in Jade. She alone can sign you out. Do you agree? I looked at Jade, who nodded. I was too keen on trusting her. But what did I really have to lose? Those at home had already started with the "at least you still have Jackson" remarks. She left till I was settled into a room of my own, much like at the center. The difference here, I wasn't allowed to associate with the other patients, and the drinks weren't laced with cheap alcohol. Are you ready for your time with the psychiatrist? The nurse entered my space, led the way. I was back at Drive Huggins' office. You know how you expect to feel safe when in a room with a shrink. It's not how you feel during the first session. You feel judged and more broken, ashamed and guarded. So I read your file. I know what the file says about you. Do you think if I asked you, you'd tell me the same? I don't know what you mean. I filled out the information. I think I was honest. Confused and ready to quit was how I felt. Yes, but if I asked you where the root of all your problems started, would you say the same thing as what you ticked in this questionnaire? You raised the paper for a brief moment. My mate rejected me. It'd start there. If I asked you why, would you have to go back or forward from the day he rejected you? You'd have to go back. It's because he loved my sister. He adjusted his glasses. The way he moved, I could already tell he was showing me an angle of my life I didn't yet see. And for that reason, was it something that started at that point, or did that begin at an earlier date? He started fiddling in his desk for something. I would have to go back. He fell in love with her because he felt the pull. That's because she's my twin. So you see, there's a chain of causation that led you to this point. I want you to think about the origin. He pulled out a small digital camera. I want you to record in detail all the events that brought you here. In detail, like describe how I felt. I held the camera. As long as you had some kind of feeling during the event, record it. I didn't see the point of this. Who will be watching it? You. You're going to make a video to tell yourself how you felt during all the stages you went through because your mate rejected you. You can tell your story however you see fit. You can skip over anything you don't remember, or if you decide some days had nothing to add. It's all acceptable. I know what happened. Why do I have to do this? He pulled out a piece of paper with the number 6 on it. He tapped on it, making sure I looked at it. What do you see? A number 6. Then he flipped the paper around. From my angle, I saw a number 9. It doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means sometimes there's more than one perspective. I held the paper in my hand, flipping it up and down as if the number would fall out soon. Who's going to watch this? I appreciate the question. After you finished, you're going to watch and rewatch what you've recorded. Pop some popcorn to enjoy as you take it all back at. The aim is to look back at your life and learn from yourself. Then I'll watch with you. Honestly, it sounded like wasting my time. I was back in my room thinking about where it all started. Where did my life go wrong? I clicked record, then started. Twins. A single fertilized egg that splits into 2 separate beings. Within the womb into either identical or non-identical persons unless you're a werewolf. Then the identicalness stops on the outside. Only the original retains the ability to shift while the other remains a human with shifter traits. The moon's gift. The magical ability to shift was not something cloned in the womb. My voice hurt after I completed the video. I don't know how long I took. Days for sure, but I lost count after becoming so focused narrating the events. The first time I watched the recording, I laughed. It was like watching a morbid comedy. The things I stressed on weren't always important, like how I like to read. I can't remember the last time I read a book. I was left to review my tape for 7 days. Then on the 8th, I watched it with Drive Huggins. His diagnosis was a hard pill to swallow. I let him judge my life, and found he was right. In layman's terms, I was afraid of being alone. My mind received information in a one-dimensional format, preventing me from seeing the bigger picture. Ever since, in the womb, I've been attached to someone. I grew up believing there was a mate out there for me. My life so far was all about replacing that mate. No one taught me how to live on my own. The ones around me filled my head with reasons that led me to believe life was all about being in a relationship. One-dimensional. I didn't see the grey areas. I denied it at first. But when Drive Huggins shed light on his observation, I began to wail. He was right. The goddess allowed the bond to die. You felt it break apart. Right. I confirmed. Then instead of realizing that you're free, you tried almost immediately to establish what was lost. You wanted to replace Jackson so badly. You mimicked the bond with Blayze. Did you not think you were moving too fast? I can't remember what I was thinking. I lowered my head. Bullshit. Do you want me to pull out the tape? You wanted to mark him from the first introduction, didn't you? Now I really understood why the tapes were necessary. I couldn't argue with myself. Think about what I'm about to say. If your mother told you, I was bringing a tin of vanilla biscuits for you. Me, a stranger you never met. Now think about meeting me, but I don't give you the tin of biscuits. What do? Would you go to the supermarket and buy yourself a tin of biscuits? What if you never tried vanilla biscuits but you know you don't like that flavor? Would you still go buy yourself a tin because you think you were owed one? I looked at him flabbergasted. A soulmate is hardly a tin of biscuits. You were mourning a possibility. A life with Jackson that could have gone either way. You saw what happened with your sister. Who's to say if he had married you, he wouldn't have longed for her. He marked her but still feels for you. It's possible if had he marked you, I'd still feel a connection to her. The roof of my world had been knocked off. Light was streaming in from every direction, making it hard for me to focus on just one thing. I never considered this at all. No matter which of us he marked, she'd still want the other. My mate and I were doomed from the beginning. There's nothing wrong with you, if that's what you're thinking, he assured me. I loved Blayze for real. I love him. I'm sure you do. But your reasons for loving him aren't real. You were brought up in a society that believes the sole purpose of a female is to be a homemaker. You were willing to accept a child as your own with Blayze. Finding a mate is to you the purpose of a female. You weren't taught to love yourself first, to be your own soulmate, to fill your own voids with you. You miss the part of your life where the goddess put you in charge of yourself. You can explore opportunities like humans. You are part human, don't you know? Humans don't have soulmates. Do you see them falling apart? No, I answered. Do you like Jackson? The bonds of him being your mate aside. Do you like who he is? And why no? I don't like him, I answered, and Drive Huggins waited for the reason. He isn't a likable person. I don't think HG is attractive. He lacks ambition, and I don't think we have anything in common. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Now Blayze. Same questions. I needed to close my eyes. What I felt for Blayze still lived in me. I love him. Archie's generous, kind, and a good father to his son. But he keeps the truth from me. He thinks on my behalf, deciding what I can and cannot handle. Archie's arrogant like that. It attracts me, but I don't like that about him. He won't admit Archie's wrong, which kind of makes him a narcissist. I don't know if the person I love is real, and if Archie's real. Will you want to try with him? I think I would. But if Archie is playing a role, one just to have someone in his life, what then? Silence. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I didn't want to admit my truth. If he was faking the real him, then it'd be in love with an imaginary person, like the birds that used to haunt me. You think your soul cries, and like a bad parent, you would do whatever to end the cry. Your soul isn't crying. That sound you hear is you. You are mourning. You are your soul. And you have been trying to stick a pacifier, hoping the crying stops. Do you think if you married, mated and marked him, you do feel complete? I won't be alone. But would you be complete? Again, silence. Why does his past matter? It's not the past. It's that he hid it. He wrote in his notes. I wondered if I were making progress. When my mate and I marked each other, I was able to enter her head. I felt her truth, saw the past that mattered. It can happen without the mark mates tend to have this link almost naturally. Did you know this happens? I recalled reading about it, but was never taught about it by any teacher or adult. I think I felt something like this with Jackson once. If Blayze is willing to let you enter his head by a mating mark, then I don't think he was really hiding anything. He only wanted you to see it in his prospectus. 3 months later, I was able to leave the facility, renewed and ready to face life. Thank you for coming. He spoke with hope. His cologne reminded me of the nights he and I would dance on the rooftop. We'd make love under the moonlight, and it'd feel safe. How could knowing his past take that safety from me? How could I really know? I didn't even know I was a magnet for men with the same principles. You look beautiful. You always do. Blayze complimented. How can you do this? Act like all is well between us. I missed you. It's hard to sleep without you. Brendan keeps asking when are you coming back. One thing I had to give him credit for. When I lived with him, he never stopped me from spending time with Nolan. When he needed me, I imagine Brendan must be feeling the same way as Nolan did when Dilla left. I didn't think about it really until now. But Blayze did share my burdens with me without asking. If I'm being honest, the man I met was the man described in those documents. People grew. As I said, why didn't you just tell me? Did I not prove to you that you could come to me with anything? The dimmets of the restaurant lighting only accentuated all his features. Nothing could change the natural attraction I felt towards him. He was naturally handsome. You left the after learning the truth on your own. You would have left if I told you. It's not a good history I carry. Blayze, I breathed hard. The difference is, I found out on my own. Had you told me the truth, I would have tried to understand. He didn't get why this was breaking me. I'm not that person anymore. You're not a person who defies the goddess. I looked him dead in the eye, challenging him to deny it. When a person suffers because of the actions of another, we develop a sentiment for others in our situation. That's what I thought was the binding factor of our relationship. Our mates hurt us. They rejected us. Like all persons who'd been rejected, I had strong feelings against those rejectors. Blayze was both. Rejector and rejected. How was I to draw the line? He should know how I feel. But more so, why I hated the part of him who had another female. How could he value me, if he couldn't value his mate? How was I to trust him? I tried to make it right with Jade. I did. She left before giving me a chance. No, she didn't. All you had to do was put her first. And where would Brendan be if I did that? He was unmoving. I'd be with you and your mate, helping you raise the rightful future of your pack. You were wrong to have a relationship with Dahlia. We all know it. What I don't understand is why you seem to think Brendan as the next alpha somehow negates your mistakes. It tells him he isn't a mistake. You're eerily dense, you know. Brendan could never be a mistake. The relationship you had with his mother was. Putting him before your mate was a mistake. Rejecting your mate for another female was a mistake. The pride you have, not wanting to do the right thing, is a mistake. One day when you'll be before the goddess, and how will you answer? The generations to come, who have followed the right path, will forever be deprived of their destined leader, the one who should have been born to you and Jade. You've wronged your descendants and future of your pack. Did you think about that? No, he never did. Your sin is not just lust, but pride. Jackson only bears the weight of lust. Why should I blast condemnation on him, but ignore that you've sinned twice as much as him? You sound like you're breaking up with me. I've already broken up with you. This is a friendly dinner. Are you going back with him then? No. In getting the help I need, then I'll try to repair my life. Help how? I went to the only person I know who was rejected and is doing well. You went to Jade. I did. She's an actual doctor, you know. I paused. How did you guess? Once I was willing to do anything for her, even go to her little rehab center. I recalled him saying he did do some therapy after she left. He claimed it didn't help him. I guess he was ready to accept he no longer had a mate. I was ready to accept that the responsibility of finding that special someone was bestowed upon me. As unfair as it seems, the goddess didn't issue second souls. Just the one. Why did you want me? Blayze. I want all the truth. When and how did you decide I was the one? Luna, I love you and you love me. We are good together. Isn't that all that matters? While in the facility, I was told all abusers use tactics to get their way. This was Blayze's method. Aim for the heart and trick the brain. I'm going to walk out if you don't answer. When Jade left me, I started the search for a female to replace her. You have to understand, I don't feel this way again. He defended I wanted a mate on paper. An arrangement that was nothing more than that because you still wanted Dahlia. I interjected and he closed his eyes. Mira was brought to my father's attention. She was perfect, having no mate. You know how that went. What you don't know is the night you turned 18. I was on my way to your pack to meet her, to claim her. Donovan intercepted me and updated me on the situation. I learned you were mate, less than so. Even more perfect for me. I knew you were at the center. We arranged it that no male would claim you. From the very beginning, we manipulated you, your family. They were going to be denied visits even if you wanted to see them. Tammy's job was to make you feel unloved. Why my heart broke. An unloved person tends to accept the smallest crumb when given. At the time, I believed Dahlia would return. I don't anymore. I swear. I love you. I really do. Do you, Blayze? Do you genuinely love me? My sternum felt sore, from the pains of keeping my ice-covered heart in place. I love you, Luna. From the moment I first saw you. How could I believe him? All my choice was gone in the matter. He engineered everything about us. Even before I met him. HS controlling. I wasn't expecting this at all. Do you still love Dahlia? Not that it mattered. I was done. No, I loved her once, but now I hate her. Did you ever love Jade? No, I never got to know her. You understand, I don't trust you. I can't be with someone I don't trust. They'll do anything. Don't leave me. You want our children to hold power. They will. They'll renounce Brendan. They'll do anything. I was wrong to have him. I admit it now. Desperation mixed with mating venom enveloped him. I don't think he'll ever know the truth about his feelings. That day was the last I saw him. Upon asking him why he didn't just do this for Jade, he confessed the lonely feeling in his chest only came after his connection to Jade was gone. Only then was he aware what emptiness felt like. Only then was he willing to do whatever it takes, including renouncing his son. The goddess works in mysterious ways. In the end, the lesson was learned. Only at the end there's no place to use the knowledge. I loved him, but Caldent continued to love him. My next stop was Jackson's house. I never entered the cottage until that day. He was all smiles ear to ear until I told him why I was there. I want you to know I really forgive you. You decided a girl of only 15. A girl who was matured. A girl who was yet to develop her personality. Was good enough for you. That's like watching a baby and deciding he won't grow up to be a person of value. I forgive you for that. I held his hand. Though I felt nothing, the goosebumps told me he did. His skin regained color. The shine in his eyes returned and the pulse fought beneath his skin to reach me. All signs that never left him. That I had always been his mate. Perhaps it was a punishment that he still felt it. Or maybe one day, just as with Jade, when I am carrying the lineage of another within me, he would feel this connection snapped. I didn't plan to return. I know I said it all the time, but this time I was saying it without weakness. When weakness did consume me, it was 16 years later. If you give me a chance, it would work. Jackson, we aren't compatible without the bond. The woman I was supposed to grow into never had a chance to exist. Had you accepted that I was your mate, we would have grown together. I would have learnt from you and you from me. We would have been two entirely different individuals now, void of a painful past. But you left me alone. I learnt to hate you instead of love you. You hate me. This wrecked him. I heard his heart shatter. I don't hate you anymore. I don't hold any feelings, grudges or favor. I stopped hating him a long time ago. It's not too late. We can still grow. He had real tears in his eyes. You were married to my sister. Might win. You'd never know if you're seeing me or her. It won't work. Even if she was might win. But just a sister. A union between him I would feel like an incestuous one. His son would be both my son's brother and cousin. Jackson was all fur coats with no knickers in my book. I'll never stop wanting you, he whispered as I left his house. At almost the age of 21, I had my entire life ahead of me. Living was finding a mate and settling down. Living was the journey. I was ready to start mine.